Okay, I thought it would be really helpful for me to share my binge eating journey, to put into context everything that I'm gonna share in here from now and in my coaching, and because if I were to be learning from someone or be doing coaching with someone, I would want to know what their story was. So that's what I'm gonna talk you through today. And it was a 14-year journey with binge eating, so I'm going to try and do this as briefly as I can, and then at other points I will share things if relevant. But yeah, I want to start by saying this isn't an easy share for me at all. I feel really nervous right now. You can probably tell, like touching my hair lots and but yeah, my partner Mark has known lots of this, and that's pretty much it. I've told some friends and family little kind of nuggets over recent years, but never gone into much detail. And then last week I talked my mum through all of this, which is quite hard but really good as well. Hi mum. So yeah, this this isn't the story that I'm really used to telling, so bear with me. And yeah, if you're a friend or family watching this and you're like, Lucy's never told me any of this, don't be offended. I've not really told anyone any of this. So yes, I'm gonna mention obviously binge eating, bulimia, anxiety, depression. Yeah, if any of this isn't for your ears right now, then obviously you can turn back now. You don't have to listen. So yes, I think the best place to start with is right at the beginning. So although I was binge eating for 14 years, I think there are some things about me as a child which made it more likely that I would develop a binge eating disorder later on in my teens. So one, I was a very emotional child, very angry, very frustrated, and thought everything was quite unfair. I feel like I had my teenage years when I was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, just lots of big emotions, and I didn't really know how to handle them. And I definitely used food as a way to soothe those. Another big one, really low, poor body image from a really early age. And I remember, I think I would have been around 7, but I remember being like, okay, every night I'm gonna do sit-ups in my bed, which isn't the place to do sit-ups if you are gonna do them. I was like, I'm gonna do 100 every night because I want to be like Sporty Spice. So obviously surrounded by these messages, and early 90s when I was a kid, all of that stuff was very prevalent. So I was definitely very insecure about my body very early on. And kind of final thing that I think really played into binge eating disorder later on was I always had a real resistance with food. I didn't like that I couldn't eat what I wanted when I wanted. And I found this really frustrating, and again I just thought it was really unfair. And we were quite healthy in my family. We had treats, but things like I would think it really unfair that my friends would get like 2 packs of crisps in their lunchbox and I would get maybe 1, but like I'd always have like a pot of nuts and dried raisins and berries and a thing with some raw pepper and stuff like that. And I thought it was really unfair, and no blame on my parents whatsoever at all. They're absolutely doing their best, and if I had that as a packed lunch now, I'd be absolutely delighted. But yeah, I would often throw away parts of my lunch, which is very naughty, and pick up money off the floor. This is at secondary school. Pick up money off the floor at secondary school and buy chocolate, little Freddo bars from the tuck shop there. So yeah, I think that obviously I wasn't binge eating then, but I think all of that played into into who I was and how I developed the eating disorder. So then when I was 16, it was at a point where I really wanted to lose weight. And I wasn't ever a chubby kid. I was never really overweight at all. Looking back at photos now, I'm like, what was I even worried about? But I wanted to lose some weight, and my game plan was to just eat fewer treats. So less cake, less crisps, I think less cereal. Wasn't doing like major big diet. There wasn't an actual diet I was going on. Wasn't like massively restrictive, but it was still there. Still, okay, I'm not going to eat these things. And me and my mum came up with this thing called the jar, where for every day that I didn't have a treat when I was presented the opportunity, I'd get £2 in the jar, and at the end of the week I'd get all the money from it. And again, no blame to anyone at all. We were doing what we thought was best. But yeah, it was around this time that I started binge eating, and again, I just didn't really deal well with not being able to have what I wanted. And like I remember going out on the weekends with my family, and it was a trip especially to get cake. We often did this on the weekend. We'd often go for a walk, and then that would end in like a green tea or getting cake or something like this. And we went somewhere just for cake, and I remember everyone eating their cake and me just sitting there thinking, oh, this is so shit. Everyone's just eating their cake and enjoying it. I'm trying to lose weight. Yeah, so that's the time when I had my first binge, and I remember it so clearly. I was prefect at secondary school in my last year, and we were allowed to go out of the school gates at lunchtime. And we'd usually go to Tesco, and when it's nice weather we'd go to the park. When it wasn't nice we'd go back to school to the classroom to hang out. And me and my friends had gone to Tesco, and we were walking back to school, back to the common room, and I just remember having this like panicky desire to eat something delicious. And I made an excuse to my friends that, oh, my mum had asked me to get something from Tesco and I completely forgot, so I'm just going to go back to Tesco and I'll see you back at school. So I went back and I bought 2 packs of those Tesco Finest triple chocolate cookies. So there's 4 in each pack, and I bought 2 of those, went straight into the toilet, into the toilet cubicle, and ate both packs in an absolute panic as quickly as I could, and that was the start of it. And of course, straight after that came all the feelings of, holy shit, what have I done? The shame, the guilt, embarrassment, like, hope no one saw me, all of these kinds of things. And yeah, it basically continued from then. I would binge whenever I got the opportunity, whenever I was able to buy food and eat it alone. I remember hiding stuff in my bedside table cupboard and hoping no one in my family would find it. Yes, and it just continued like this for kind of 3 years. I didn't know what a binge eating disorder was at that time. I just thought it was this thing that I was doing that was completely mad, and you know, I couldn't tell anyone about it because I'd be like, what the fuck? And then at 19, I'd moved to London. I got a job that I really wanted and learned that the industry that I thought I wanted to work in for since I was 14, I'd been doing work experience in this industry, and I thought it was what I wanted to do, and I quickly learned that it wasn't for me. So I left that job, and I was kind of in this place where I felt a little bit lost. I was really, really anxious at this time as well. So I also had a chronic anxiety disorder, and I don't think the binge eating and chronic anxiety disorder are like totally like one of the same thing. They're their own things, but they're definitely interweaved and linked together. And times when I'm more anxious, definitely binge more. But this time I was in a really bad place, and I was definitely depressed, and my body image worth was so low. Just gonna have a sip of water. Sorry. Yeah, it was so low, and this is when I slipped into bulimia. So at this time, it's basically every day. Get to the end of the day, I'd have a massive binge. So I'd go to the Sainsbury's local, just down the road, buy this food. There's some particular like strawberry laces, McCoy's, Thai chicken crisps, and like picnic eggs, those little Scotch egg things, and Cadbury's rolls. They were like my biggest binge foods then. But I'd go, buy the stuff, go back to my room, eat it all, get that tiny moment of relief, and then be like, holy shit. Try and take back that control, and I would go for a run. And at that time I was like, yeah, I'm getting into running for fitness and blah 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 blah. It was totally to lose weight and to try and counteract the binges. And so I'd go for a run, but no, before going for the run I would take a load of laxatives. So I'd take a double dose of laxatives and then go for a run, try and work off what I could, and then yeah, wait for the laxatives to do their thing. And so silly, I took a very well-known brand of laxatives that are herbal based, and I thought because they were herbal they would be better for me than anything else, which is very silly, which is a side note. But yes, I would try and make myself sick pretty much every time, and I didn't really succeed. Maybe like one tiny bit of food would come up, but I really struggled with that. Thank God. And sorry, around that time, I had some really like scary experiences. So I'd have a binge and take these laxatives and go for a run, and there'd be times where I'd think that like one of my organs was going to explode or something, so I'd feel so shit, so full, so just really terrible. And yeah, I'd feel like, okay, one of my organs is going to fail or explode or something, and I'm going to have to go to hospital, but the only way to do that would be to call an ambulance, and it's way too shameful to call an ambulance and explain that I'd done this to myself. So I was like, if I get to that stage, if something does go really wrong, then I'll just lie here and I'll just let myself die. I'm really trying hard not to cry on this. But yeah, that's where I got to. And luckily I managed to pull myself out of it. But it was a good year and a half of that, which is way too long. And I don't want anyone else to ever go through that, because it's shit. Just 1 minute. Yeah, so I think I got myself out of that from kind of pure, like, okay, this isn't good, I'm not in a good way, I have to stop doing this. And I didn't stop binge eating, I stopped taking laxatives, and I stopped running. So with the running, I got to the point where my knees were so bad I could hardly walk, and I had to go and see a physio and all of this. Of course, I didn't tell them about the reason why I was running again. It was all under the guise of looking after myself and getting fitter and healthier, all of that. Yeah, and I think at this point I'd been with Mark for a couple of years, and I think I told him about this, and it was probably quite hard not to tell him about that, because it would be like, what is going on with you? So he's known since this time, but again, still my self-worth was so shit. I was really obsessed with getting a nose job at this time. I would look at all the websites for the top nose job places and watch videos before and afters, so adamant, and so glad that I didn't have the money then, because I like my funny, crooked, wonky nose and face, and I like that I can see my family in it and in my face and all of this stuff. So anyway, that's just a side note. So again, just continued binge eating, and this was around my early to mid 20s now. And at this time, my weight was going up and down quite a lot. So depending on how much I was restricting and how much I was binging, my weight was going up and down. And I did Weight Watchers, I think, twice during this time. Yeah. And at those points where I had lost weight, I was at one of my slimmest points ever. People would always be like, "Oh, you look so well, you look so good." And it's funny because that's what you want to hear. You're like, "Oh great, this is what I've been after." But at the same time, it just reinforces self-worth based on how you look, and you'd be like, this is what I want to hear, but also they have no idea how shit I actually feel and how unhealthy, how unwell I actually am. So that's a really kind of strange one. So yeah, that continued, and I think I was looking through some old emails recently trying to piece the story together, because so much of it was a long time ago and it's hard to remember exactly when things happened. But it's 2013 when I was 22, and I actually looked into getting help for binge eating. And again, with the anxiety disorder, I had been to my GP a couple of times, completely broke down. So the first GP laughed at me and sent me for blood tests, and that was that. Second GP took me a bit more seriously, and I got put on antidepressants, which helped me a little bit for a short period of time, just to get through that really kind of difficult patch. And then I'd hate how I'd feel on them, so I'd come off. And I think I came on and off of them 3 times. And I was like, okay, GP is not going to help me with this binge eating. I'm not even going to attempt to go there, really. I did a few years ago. I'll tell you about that shortly. But yes, I got help, and it's with someone I still follow, and I still read all their emails, and still feel like they would have helped me so much back then. But I think that I needed to ask for help for my family, for money to be able to do the coaching with her, and I just chickened out. And I know that help would have been there for me, but I just didn't want to basically tell anyone about what had been going on. So that didn't happen, which is a shame, because I could have saved myself years of trouble. But hey ho, I learned a lot along the way. And then trying to think where I am, mid-20s. I think so many people my age around that time got really kind of pulled into the clean eating kind of thing, and trying to, make healthy versions of nice things. And yeah, again, binging was so bad at that time. Binging big time. And you know, all this time I was trying to learn about how to stop, and there's some really wonderful books I read, some books that made things worse. You know, there's a lot of trial and error going on, and it was, just to backtrack a bit, it was when I had bulimia that I realised that binge eating was actually a thing. It's when I learnt that it was actually a thing, and that was helpful because then I knew what to look for in terms of help. Around that time as well, maybe about 26, I also tried juice cleansing, again in the guise of health. Again, that wasn't helpful. And when there was the trend of everyone doing intermittent fasting, again, I was straight on that. So I was doing fast in the morning, so stop eating after dinner and then through till about midday the next day. And I actually managed to do that for like 2 weeks without binging, which is really quite amazing for me. And then I started, after those 2 weeks, I was like, oh great, maybe I'm losing weight, blah, blah, blah. After that 2 weeks, I immediately started binging on my way to work every single morning. So again, Sainsbury's local, there's these vegan cookies I buy, crisps, and just like between Sainsbury's local and getting on the tube, consume as much as possible, feel like shit, go to work feeling like shit. And that was actually a habit that I found really hard to break once I started those on the way to work morning binges. So that went on. And around this point, up until this time as well, I had notebooks full of like my weight every day, all of my measurements around the chest, hips, tummy, thighs, arms, everything that I would do all the time. And it was kind of around 27-ish. I'm 31 now, by the way, for context. Around this time I was like, okay, this isn't helping at all. This is part of the problem. So I completely stopped weighing myself. I've not weighed myself since 2017. So from that point was when I really started turning a corner and really properly helping myself. And Mark and I went travelling together for 6 months around that time, which was amazing. I was still binging then, and I'd, you know, at the end of the day, I might just be like to Mark, I just need to have a binge. And I'd go and buy Oreos. That's pretty much all I could eat in Southeast Asia because I'm vegan. And just a note on that, when I was 25, I became vegan, and when, I think a couple of years before that, I was vegetarian. And I feel very much so that this has never played into my eating disorder. I've never once craved an animal product, an animal. I've never binged on anything with an animal product in. And I think this is something to be really careful about because, and vegans, don't come at me, please. I know other people that have tried like being vegan but more plant-based to try and lose weight and things like this, and it can be unhelpful if you're binge eating. That's a side note. I'll probably talk about that at some point sometime. But yeah, I never feel like it's been part of my binge eating. But yeah, anyway, Asia, Oreos were my best friend. And did my yoga teacher training then, which was amazing. And I've never used yoga as like a way to lose weight. I started yoga in my early 20s alongside meditation as a way to help me deal with my anxiety, and it helped so much. And I did have these kind of sneaky little thoughts when I did my yoga teacher training that maybe when I was teaching lots, I would just lose weight and stop binging, or that the practices would help me just to stop binging. And that awareness that you learn through practices like yoga and meditation are amazing, and have helped me so much to come through the other end. But I think that alone isn't enough. There's certain things you need to learn about binge eating and certain other things you need to do. Again, those are some big tangents I could go down, but again, I'll save that for another time. And then I came back to the UK, and back this point was when my binges stopped losing their urgency, and I didn't really get any kind of relief from them. There was no benefits to them, and I could really feel this, but it was just habitual at this point. I wasn't really restricting any foods then. I wasn't really trying to lose weight, except for there's this kind of low-key thing in the back of my mind. And yeah, binging was very much habitual then. If I was having a hard day, it'd be binge, oh, I'm in the supermarket, oh, I'll buy some binge food. It's just really there was no satisfaction, and it didn't feel like it was really serving a purpose for me anymore, because it's a really important thing to know, is that doing these things because they do serve a purpose in their own weird way. But yeah, this was 2018, and then I think 2019 I was feeling I'm so close to getting out of this, and I just want some help. And again, I just didn't have money at this time. There's some amazing people I could have gone and seen privately, but yeah, I didn't have money, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna try seeing my GP. And I went and saw my doctor, and I went in, and in London you always see different doctors. You never get a regular person you see, or at least I never have. And I went in, and it was someone that I'd never seen before, and it was a young woman, and I kind of thought, oh good, maybe she would have a better chance of understanding, maybe. And I again broke down in tears, told her everything, told her about binge eating and why it's happening and everything, and it was she didn't want to hear me at all. And the only thing she picked up on was that after a binge I said my stomach really hurts, and she got me up on the table and had a feel of my stomach and was oh, I can't feel anything. And I was well, yeah, I've not just binged, but thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to after this. And she was oh, I'll send you for some blood tests. And I was just oh, the usual, send you for some blood tests. So I really tried to get across to her what's going on. But anyway, went and got my blood test done. They came back all fine. I had a call from a doctor. It was a different doctor telling me that my results were all good. And I was okay, what are the next steps now? What do I do to help me with the binge eating? And he was what are you talking about? I explained, and he said, okay, well, there's nothing on your file here about binge eating, so if you want to talk about that to someone, then you have to make another appointment. And I was oh, okay, fine. Just basically ignored what I went there for. So I thought, okay, I can't afford to see anyone privately. My GP isn't going to help me. I've really got to help myself now. I've really got to do everything I can. There was so much that I'd learned up to this point, and things that I learned that I wasn't really putting to practice. So like I was saying, still low-key wanting to lose weight, wanting to change my body. Still, I wasn't really restricting foods. When I say restricting foods, like not eating, sorry, I've been talking for half an hour. When I say restricting, I mean not eating those foods that I thought were naughty. So, you know, the usual, you don't need me to list them. So I was eating them, but still at the back of my mind, I was feeling that shame. I was eating them and not just being like, oh, this is so delicious, I'm enjoying this. Isn't life wonderful when you can eat pizza, whatever. I was eating it, but in my head still being like, oh, you shouldn't eat this. You've eaten quite a lot already. Maybe you should stop now. You're gonna have to eat less tomorrow to make up for this. You know, these thoughts are still going on, and I was still not dealing with my emotions in very helpful ways. So I took it on myself to really break free from binging eating once and for all, and just find peace with my body, which is the nicest, most liberating thing ever, to just be like, oh, okay, I accept whatever is going on, it's fine. So yeah, that was another kind of year and a half of really going in deep, and so much like work I put into myself, so much inner child work, shadow work, lots of stuff, so much journaling. Basically spent all my evenings working on myself, and I can't remember when my last actual binge was. Like I said, they'd lost their strength, lost their urgency, and it kind of slipped less into binge eating and more into just habitually overeating. And then definitely not binged since March this year. So that's March. So that's 8, can't count. That's 8 months ago. I've not even thought about it at all. I'll have like a thought occasionally, and then it's just so easy to just brush away and not even have to do any more work than that. It's just like that habitual thought, and okay, it's gone. And I know we're living in Mexico at the moment, and it's not like when I was living in London, and I literally lived 2 minutes away from the biggest Tesco. Like it would be harder for me to go out and binge, but I absolutely could. Like the supermarket's only half an hour walk away, and that is nothing if you've got an urge to binge and you're determined. And there's, you know, I could just say to Mark in our food order this week, I'm going to put in loads of binge food. You know, he wouldn't stop me. And I've been into town lots on my own, and in the past I've been like, way goody, I'm on my own. Nice opportunity to binge, but again, I've just not even thought about it. It hasn't even crossed my mind. So that's where I'm at now. I feel like, I was saying this to my mum the other day, I feel like when I get back to the UK there might be some like little tests. But again, I think I'm just going to be able to brush them off. I can't see myself binging again. Yeah. So I've been talking for 35 minutes. I think that'll do for now. I'll probably think of loads of things later that I'll be like, oh, I should have said that. There's so much to this. I could talk about my experience for a long time. But yeah, if you're struggling with any of this, if you've watched up to now, thank you so much for watching, and there is absolutely a way out. Please remember that in those moments of despair, it's not forever. And hope this was helpful in some way. Hope this helps to put into context what I'm going to be sharing here. Sorry you had to see me cry. Oh, I tried so hard not to do that. And yeah, if I can help you in any way, I'm here. Just send me a message. Yeah. I don't know how to finish this, but thank you and take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.